My name is Beth. I placed 2 children for adoption through the adoption circle. Started out 6 years ago. When I initially found out that I was pregnant, I was homeless, addicted to crack. I have 2 previous children, a boy and a girl, and because of my daughter and my son that I couldn't take care of, I knew that I wouldn't be able to take care of another child. Pretty much my process for me in the back of my mind I knew I was going to give my child away, but by just being on drugs, I didn't start looking right away, and I stayed in denial for a really long time that I was even pregnant. Long story short, I waited until I had the baby, and when I went into labor and went to the hospital, initially I told the people, I was very honest, that I was a crack addict and that I was pregnant and that I wanted to give my child away for adoption. After having the baby, a social worker came down and seen me, and mind you, I chose to not hold my baby, look at my baby, because I was afraid I would fall in love with her. And as hard as you try not to bond, it's impossible. She handed me a list of adoption agencies, and I just chose the first one on my list. And Kim came to see me and started my process from there, asking me questions and everything. And I just remember that I was very mean to her. I was very short with her. She was very patient with me. She asked me a million questions that I didn't want to answer because I wanted so hard to pretend that this never happened. But I knew it was the right thing to do. And I didn't have an ID. I didn't have a social security card. I didn't have a birth certificate. They didn't know who I really was. Nobody knew who I really was at the hospital or anything because of the lifestyle that I lived. When you have 2 children that you can't take care of, that you dearly love, and you just had another baby, and you know, no matter how much that you love the child, that you can't do right by him. This was the one thing that I could do that was right, no matter how hard it was for me. Kim was great. She got a girl to take me to get my birth certificate, social security card, my ID, and all that stuff. And for me, the whole thing was just so incredibly hard because I still just wanted to get high, and I didn't want to feel it. And I didn't want to. No matter how hard I tried, I just tried to act like this didn't happen and just to put it behind me. And I just wanted to hurry up, get the process over with, and let it be done. The adoption circle was just great. They were there for me every step of the way and helped me and everything. And the day it came to sign the permanent papers, they had picked me up and taken me there. They took me everywhere I needed to go during this time. And she kept asking me all these questions. Well, don't you want to know about the parents? No, I just want it over with. Let's just get it done and over with. And I didn't look at anything. I let the adoption circle make all my decisions for me regarding the parents, everything. I didn't ask any questions. I just trusted the process. A year, 2 years, 2 years later, I found myself pregnant again. So immediately, instead of waiting, because I knew how it worked this time, I was just so angry at myself that this happened. Knowing the process now and everything, not wanting to go through the emotional part of it again, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I called Kim back, and I did have a cell phone, and she called me back, and she picked me up. She used to pick me up outside of crack houses. and would always get me something to eat. And would always make sure I was okay. And was just so kind to me, never judged me. And I just remember her picking me up. And I said, will you call the parents of my first baby and ask them if they want this baby too? And she said, I already did. And they do. So in my mind, I thought, oh, well, God's using me for these people. And I was okay with it. And it wasn't so hard for me the second time. You know, I had the paperwork done this time and everything was in place. And the second labor was crazy because a friend of mine had stolen someone's car to get me to the hospital. And it was kind of, I felt like Thelma and Louise a little bit. And we went through the process again. And she reminded me that I had a file where I could open the pictures, the letters, and look at them. And I always had that in the back of my mind. But I thought I would run my children. And again, I went through the whole denial thing, and I just went on about things. I decided that I was going to try this God thing. And I was going to try to follow after Christ, because I've tried everything else in my entire life. And nothing ever worked for me. I got papers while I was there for permanent custody of my daughter, where they wanted to adopt her out, and I didn't want that to happen. I knew that at this point that I was ready to get my life back together. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but I knew it in my heart. I tried to get a hold of the adoption circle, like, once again, to help me with my daughter, because I didn't want to lose her entirely. And I thought, well, maybe she could go with the parents again, and just until I can get home. And things didn't work out like that, and I'm okay with that today, because I asked for God's will to be done in that. And long story short, I ended up with an early release, and I went to a great place called Rachel's House. So I decided that I wanted to give back to the adoption circle. I wanted to volunteer in some kind of way, and so I called Kim, and that's when I decided that I wanted to know my children's names. You know, at that time in my life, I was so in denial and so didn't want this to happen that I couldn't even remember. I could tell you what month they were born in, but I couldn't tell you what day, and I couldn't even tell you what year. So I started out with their names and their birthdays, and she told me that, the adopted mom of the kids, she told me that she was open to anything that I wanted. And immediately I went back right into that mode of shutting down at my process at Rachel's house, and getting a job, and going through recovery, and trying to stay clean, and living a life I've never lived before. And, you know, in my mind, I was just trying to reestablish a relationship with my son, who never gave up on me and always trusted me. And I would pray for God to reconcile my family. And it occurred to me that I have an open opportunity to have a relationship with children that I gave birth to, that have no excuse anymore to be in denial of it. And what are they going to say to me when they're grown? And they're going to come back and they're going to say, well, what happened? Why didn't you come look for us? You were okay and you knew that. So with knowing that, I said, okay, well, I decided that I was going to send pictures of me. And I wrote the adoptive parents a letter, and I gave it to Kim, and she sent it off for me. And Kim called me and told me that they sent me stuff. And at that point, I still hadn't ever read any letters. I never seen them. I never seen any pictures. And I talked about with my community at Rachel's house, and the people that I was closest to, and my sponsor. And, you know, I didn't know how I'd feel for so long. My feelings, I
ran from them, and that's what got me high, and I was scared to death of that. But I continued praying about it, and knowing that I have an open door for me. I just woke up one morning. I can't even explain it. I just woke up one morning, and it was like God said, it's time. And I called Kim, and I said, Kim, I'm ready for my file. And she said, okay, well, I think that we should start from the recent letter and we should work our way back. And I said, no, I think you should just give me my file. And she said, well, Beth, I think that you really need to be with somebody when you do this and stuff. And I said, I am. I'm going to do it at community with the girls from Rachel's house. And I opened my file. And the first letter I read, I found out that my children's parents are Christian parents that started praying for me from the time I was pregnant. 6 years ago, they started praying for me. And I know that's why I'm at where I'm at today. And it brought such joy to my heart. And then I thought, well, what was I so scared of? Never looking at the pictures and just cutting myself off. And so I just used to look at the pictures, and I would read these letters that I had that were stacked up from years. I just started writing them, and she'd write me back, and slowly but surely we just kind of built a relationship. They kept telling me they wanted to meet me, and I wasn't ready, and God did his thing like he does for me. And it's always when I wake up, and it was time for me to meet him. So I met with them, and my oldest son came with me. We just talked, and we shared our stories and what it was like for us. And we became friends. And she told me when I was ready to meet my children that I could meet them anytime I wanted. And so I was blessed with the opportunity I met them last weekend, and I had a wonderful time. And, God's just so amazing. And looking back, I always thought that, God used me for those people. And after meeting them and looking back on my situation, God used those people for me and my children. And, so where it goes from here, I'm not really sure. They invited me for Thanksgiving, so I feel like I have a bigger extended family now, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what becomes of it. I don't have any expectations. They don't have any expectations on me. We're just people in relationship.